Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson which is all about creating studio-style multi-image portraits. Now, while this looks like the kind of image that's been shot in a commercial high street studio with lots of expensive lighting gear, it was actually shot in a conservatory, using nothing more than the natural lighting from a cloudy day. And the pure white backdrop that locks all the figures together is nothing more than a bed sheet. All you need to do once you've set up your white backdrop and your subject is dial in a little bit of exposure compensation. I use 0.7 stops of exposure compensation to make sure that the camera didn't underexpose the image. Now, with these kind of shots, all you have to get is the raw material. You've just got to get the subject sharp and in the frame. And once you've done that, all the composition side happens in Photoshop. And in this example, what that involves is starting with a white background to the size you want to print. This is an A3 background I've got here. And then you add your first shot, your second shot, and your third shot to it, and arrange them how you see fit. Now, the tricky part of this technique is obviously arranging the subjects how you want them, but also it's making sure the background is a uniform pure white. So that's what we're going to look at in this tutorial, so let's now close this one down and get started. Okay, the first thing you need to do is create the canvas you're going to work on. So we go up to File and choose New, and we're going to go for an A3 document. So the width we need to be 42 centimeters, so we'd put in 42 and change that to centimeters. And then the height we need at 29.7 centimeters. For resolution, 240 is absolutely fine, so go for 240 pixels per inch, and then color mode RGB color, 8-bit, and background contents white. Once you've done that, click OK, and your A3 canvas will appear on screen. Right, next up we need to open the images. So if you go to the CD, just go to File, Open, and choose Child 1 first of all, and that will open up on screen. What we're going to do is get this shot into this canvas. And to do that is really easy. All we do is hit Control and A on the keyboard, and that gives us marching ants all the way around the outside of the image. So that's selected the whole thing. We now need to copy that to memory, which is going to Edit and choosing Copy, or you can just use the shortcut Control and C. So we copy that to memory, and then we can close down the image here. We can do that by just going to Control and W. That will shut down the image. Now, it seems a bit crazy. We've closed down the image we want to use, but because it's saved in memory, all we need to do now is go to Control and V, and it gets pasted in the middle of the frame. Now we've got it there, we're going to transform the image slightly, so we hit Control and T to go into transform mode, and this bounding box will appear around the image. We're just going to drag it down into the bottom left corner like so. It should snap to the edge of the new canvas. Then we're going to hold down the Shift key to keep things in proportion and pull on this corner handle just to enlarge the subject in the frame. Something like that should be absolutely fine. So once you've done that, double click inside the bounding box and that transformation will happen. Now hopefully you can see it okay on your screen. We can see a slight difference here between the white background that was used, the bed sheet in the conservatory, and the actual pure white of the image. So what we want to do is make sure that we have a uniform pure white across the background. And to do this, we're going to use a levels adjustment layer. So we need to open up our layers palette, go to Window and choose Layers, and that'll appear on screen with layer 1 floating above the background. That's where your image is there, the subject. And what we're going to do is create a levels adjustment layer that's clipped to layer 1. Now to do that, hold down the Alt key and click on the adjustment layer icon. This is the half black, half white circle. It's at the bottom of the palette in the full Photoshop and at the top of the palette in Elements. Click on that and then hold down the mouse and go to Levels and Release. And we get this interesting new layer dialog box. And there's a box in here that says Use Previous Layer to Create Clipping Mask. Tick that box and then click OK. And the levels adjustment layer is clipped just to this layer. That means that the changes you make to this adjustment layer will only affect that layer and will affect nothing else. So once we've got our levels palette up on screen, what we need to do is select the white eyedropper tool. That's this one here. So select that, and then we just need to click on this background to turn it completely white. So we need to find the darkest part of the background. I think I've got it there. That should do the trick. Yep, that's good. And once you've got the darkest part of the background, just click OK. Now by doing that, you've made the whole image a bit brighter, and that can result in overexposure on a subject's face. So what we're now going to do is paint into this mask that's associated with the adjustment layer. We're going to paint black into it. So we pick up a paintbrush, make sure black is in the foreground colour swatch box. Then all we have to do, we'll get a larger brush size, just hitting the square brackets key, the right square brackets key to go up in brush size, left to go down. Something like that should be good. Then we just paint. You can see we're just restoring that little bit of detail. There we go. And we just paint all over the subject. Don't have to be too accurate with it. A fairly rough painting around will do. And then you can see in the layers palette, you can see that mask that we've just painted there. And that means that the changes we've made in forcing the background to become white do not affect the subject. The subject's just showing through as normal. So only our background is turned pure white. Right, so that's the first job done. Now we need to move on to our second picture. So we go up to File, Open, and this time choose Child 2. There we go. Now we're going to do the same thing again. Hit Control and A to select the whole image. That's select all. If you want to take the longhand route, select all. There we go. Control and A. Once we've selected the image and it's surrounded by marching ants, we need to copy it. So that's Edit, Copy, or Control and C. And now we've done that, we can actually close down the file with Control and W. Then of course we have to paste it in, which is Edit and Paste, or Control and V. And our image appears in the middle of the frame. Now this picture we're going to transform again, so we hit Control and T. Then we're just going to move it down to the bottom right corner. Let me just move the layers palette out the way a second. There we go. Need it somewhere down there. Maybe we'll make it slightly larger in the frame. Just hold down the Shift key, pull the one of the corner handles, and we'll move it over a touch. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me there. So we've just shifted it over to the bottom right corner. Double click inside the bounding box to confirm the changes from the transform tool. And you can see we've got an immediate problem. We've actually got some of the background overlapping the first shot here. So we're just going to clear that up very quickly using the eraser tool. Pick up the eraser from the toolbox, fairly large brush. That should do about 500 pixels, and we simply rub out that edge. So anywhere we get an overlap, just make sure you select the right layer in the layers palette. In this case, we've got layer 2, and then you simply rub out the edge of it. So we'll just take that down. And if you look at that layer in isolation, we can see there, that's where we've rubbed out the edge. So that's done the job pretty well. But maybe, let me just zoom in, because I think we've gone a bit too far. Yeah, we've started to eat away at the model's boot there. So I'm just going to hit Control and Z, and then Control Alt Z, just to undo that. And I'll just erase that again, taking a bit more care. So we pick up the eraser tool, slightly smaller brush, and we'll just get rid of that part of the image there. I think that should do the trick now. We'll just check that with the other pictures. And that looks a bit better. Just make sure we're on the right layer. There we go. That's done the job. So there's no more overlaps getting in the way, but we do have a few distractions in this particular layer, so we can get rid of those as well. Let me zoom back in again. We've got this edge between background and bed sheet here, so what I'm going to do is just grab hold of the eraser again, nice small brush, and just get rid of that. All we're doing is removing that problem from the scene. Smaller brush again, just left square brackets key, just rubbing out that slight blemish that's been left in the image. Let's just look around as well. It's a little bit of shadow here, which that's not too bad actually. We'll look at that a bit later on, the shadow. We've got the box the girl sitting on. Oh, there's a bit more here, so we can just get rid of that line. There we go. The box she's sitting on is actually just a storage box. Really simple, clear plastic storage box. And we're going to use a jumping shot in a second, and that was used as a prop to sit on and jump off. That looks okay now. So I think that's done the job. Maybe we'll just clear up some of this bit here too. Just bring that back to white. A little bit of clearing up with the eraser tool. I think that's probably enough work now. Because what we're going to do now is turn that background pure white. So if we jump back out to full screen using the hand tool, just double click the hand tool. Now we can do that levels adjustment trick again. So making sure that layer 2 is active, the one with the sitting girl, what we need to do is hold down the Alt key, click on the adjustment layer icon, and then choose levels from the list. Release the mouse, tick the clipping mask box again, and click OK. Now we get our white eyedropper, and we need to make sure we select the darkest part of the background here, which is probably somewhere in here. That's done the trick. I think that's pretty good, actually. That's made the subject very bright and overexposed, but that's okay. We'll click OK to that one because we've turned our background white, and now all we have to do is paint into this layer mask to restore the detail in the subject. So we pick up our brush, make sure black is the foreground colour, a little bit smaller on the brush size there, and there you can see the detail just coming back. There we go, slightly smaller brush, just to do the sleeves, a couple of clicks around the hands, and then the footwear, and that job is done. You can check there, if I just make the layers palette a little bit bigger, we just click on this fly out arrow, choose palette options, we'll go for the largest thumbnail size and click OK. You can see in that mask, that's our layer mask. You can see it corresponds pretty accurately to the shape of the little girl in the picture. Right, we'll just make that a bit smaller again now. Palette options, and we'll go back to there. Because we're going to get a few layers going, so we need to make sure we've got some space on screen to see all our layers in action. And now we've done that, I'm just going to tidy up those shadows. I mentioned them earlier, and we're just going to address those now. So I'm going to click on layer 2, so I'm off the adjustment layer, but on the layer itself. Let's just go in a little bit tighter on those shadows, and I'm going to use the eraser, but I'm going to set the opacity down to about 50%. So somewhere around there should be fine, and then using a fairly large brush, I'm just going to sweep around just to tone down the shadows cast by the child's hands and feet. So we'll just get a brush size of about 300 or so, and just do a delicate sweep around the feet, like so. That's probably enough. That's okay. That's just tidied up those shadows. So a subtle change there, but one that's worthwhile, because of course the rest of the shot is shadowless. Right, now that's all done, it's time for the third picture. So we go to File, Open, choose Child 3 from the CD, and there we go. Control and A to select the entire image, Control and C to copy it, Control and W to close it down, then Control and V to paste it in. Now what we've done here by mistake is we've pasted it in as a clipping mask because we had the wrong layer selected. But that's okay, all we need to do is move it. So we just grab hold of it in the layer stack, move it to the top, and then we need to unclip it. So we hold down the Alt key, and when we get those two interlocking circles between the layers, click, and it comes back out on top. So if you do inadvertently paste in a layer as a clipping mask, just move it to the top of the stack, hold down the Alt key, and then click on the line between the layers to unclip it. So that's an easy way out of a slight error I've made there, but let's not worry too much about that because we've got to transform this layer. Hit Control and T, and then all we need to do is hold Alt and Shift this time to transform in proportion from the center, and then we need something around that size. I guess you're looking at about sort of 60% of its original size. If you look up in the options bar, you can see the percentage of the transform, and as we go up and down holding Alt and Shift, you can see that percentage changes. So I think somewhere around sort of 60% would be good. Once you've done that, just move it into position. Yeah, that should be pretty good there. So once you've got it roughly in position, double click inside the bounding box and that transformation will happen. Now you can see immediately that we've got some overlapping problems with the layer. So all we need to do again is what we did before, make sure the right layer is selected, pick up the eraser tool, and then we simply use a brush, 300 pixels should be fine, and we're just going to work away at those edges to make sure we don't have any overlap. And that looks pretty good. I'll just put my opacity back up to 100 because we're just deleting parts of the frame here. We don't really need to blend them in, because we should get the whole thing in pure white soon. Bring that one back through. There we go, and that's got rid of all the overlap. Excellent. Okay, once that's done, we need to turn the background white again, and that of course is attained by using the levels adjustment layer. So we'll just do that once more. Hold down Alt, click on the adjustment layer icon, choose levels, click on the clipping mask box, click OK. Then we have our levels palette up on screen. Select the white eyedropper, and then we need to find the darkest part of this background. I think it's about there, up in that top left corner. And that's turned the entire thing to pure white. I can't see the join there, so that's good. We'll click OK to that. Then all we need to do is restore detail in the bit we left. So it's making sure our layer mask is selected, making sure that black is the foreground colour. We pick up the paintbrush, then we just need to paint in just to restore the detail where it's needed. There we go, and you can see the mask appearing as we paint. So that should do the trick nicely. Great. Now if I just move the layers palette out the way for a second, you can see that it's really taking shape now. We've got our prominent head and shoulder shot, a fairly standard classic portrait. Then we've got some more exuberant poses, one sitting and one jumping, just to show more of the character of the child. What we're going to do now, it's a really important stage, is we're going to check the image. What I like to do, especially when you've got multiple images like this, zoom in to a top corner, something like that, then use the space bar just to track across the entire screen. And you're looking out for any telltale signs, any errors, any inconsistencies, anywhere where you can see the join. And just track around the image like that, bit by bit, looking for anything that's wrong. Those shadows are okay now, we've addressed those, so that's good. I think we've actually got everything. I can't see any blemishes or any problems. There's no overlap issues around here. Yep, so we're safe. But always check an image, because what we're going to do now is flatten the image. And of course, once we've done that, we can't go back to our original layers. So we'll pull our layers palette back on screen. And there's a number of ways you can flatten an image, because all we're going to do is crunch all this work down into one single layer. We can either go to Layer and choose Flatten Image from the bottom of the list, or in fact we can use the Layers palette flyout arrow, exactly the same thing, Flatten Image is there at the bottom. So we're confident we're happy with how everything is, so we'll click Flatten Image and we go down to one single background layer. Right, back to full screen, let's move that Layers palette out the way. What we're now going to do is a little bit of subtle dodging and burning, just to bring out the detail in particularly the eyes of the subject. So what we're going to do is zoom in tight on that area. This one here is the important one. There we go. We'll just select, first of all, the burn tool. We're going to set it to shadows with an exposure value of 3 or 4% will be fine. So shadows in range, 3% in exposure. Now a nice small brush, something like sort of 100 pixels or so. And all we're going to do is run it gently across the eyes. And that will just darken the pupils and bring a little bit of detail in. There we go. And that's probably enough. You don't need to do too much at all. Now we'll do the other eye. A little bit of burning. That's plenty there. We're now going to move across to this image here and do the same thing. Slightly smaller brush. A little bit of burning. Don't need much at all. All we're doing is making the darker parts of the image darker still, and it just gives us a little bit more detail. That's enough. Now we've done that, we're going to switch to dodging. So we'll go back to our lead image. Go to the dodge tool, select that, and this time in range choose highlights and exposure about 4%, 3 or 4%, that's all you need. So a small brush again, we'll just hit the left square brackets key to bring that down in size. There we go. Now a little bit around there, just make it really small to bring out the highlights in the eyes. That's good. And I think that's enough. We'll move across to see if we need to do any more. Probably on this one just a touch. And that's enough. Just a very subtle bit of dodging and burning, which just gives us a little bit more contrast and tweaks that eye contact. Now as a final step, all we want to do is add a hint of sharpness. And we're going to do that using the unsharp mask filter. So we pick up our lasso tool, the normal lasso, and we're just going to make a rough selection around one eye. Something like that. We're then going to hold Shift and select the next eye along. And then we'll hold Shift again and just select the features on this shot too. There we go. Once we've done that, we need to soften the edge of this selection we've made. So go up to Select and choose Feather. And for feather radius, go for about 25 pixels. Click OK to that. And now we're going to add a little bit of sharpness. So let's zoom in so we can see exactly what's going to happen. Then we go to Filter, Sharpen, and choose Unsharp Mask. Now there's our Unsharp Mask dialog. You can see there the difference it's making. We've got Preview ticked. You can see a subtle difference between the before and the after. And the settings we're going to go for are about 140 in amount, about 1 in the radius, and a threshold of somewhere around 4 should be good. And if you click the mouse and release it, you can see the before and after in the preview box here. You can see there's a nice little subtle sharpening of the detail in the eyes. And that's all we need, just a hint of sharpness there, just to help out the eye contact. So once you've made those settings, click OK, and then hit Ctrl and D to lose those marching ants around the eyes. Double click the hand tool to come back to full size, and there we have a wonderful multi-image portrait of a child. It looks like it was shot in a commercial high street studio, and also looks like it cost a fortune, but of course we've just done it in a conservatory with a white bedsheet and a little bit of Photoshop magic. Hope you enjoy that, give it a try with your pictures, and see you next time.